'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna
Okay,
visit.
we are here for the Zone 5 race to Zion. This is the big one. This is the point of team camp that everyone looks forward to. It's time for everyone to see how their winter training has gone or not gone, and to really put everything out there on the road with no excuses for holding you back. So let me explain a little bit the way that this race is organized. So it is just part of a team race that Zone 5 puts on every year. We head down to St. George, and specifically in this case, the Zion area. And we ride out to the beginning of this segment from usually Hurricane, Utah. And this segment starts just at the top after the long hill up from Laverton, Utah. This segment is about 18 miles long, and it's fairly flat. There are some rollers mixed in between that add some elevation, about 500 feet worth of elevation over the course of this segment or this race that we do. The nice thing is it's not quite as high elevation as we typically are up in Utah and Salt Lake County. So we're sitting around 3.5 to 4,000 feet of elevation above sea level. The KOM for the men's is around 36 minutes 42 seconds on this segment, and the women not too far behind at 39 minutes and 15 seconds. So the way we organize this race is, in order to include everybody and make it a fun experience for everyone, we have 3 separate groups that set off. So we have the C group, the B group, and the A group. So typically we organize that based on which category you race. The C group is usually more beginner to Cat 5 racers, or just people that like to ride for fun and don't really race much. The B group is oftentimes Cat 4 to Cat 3 racers, or depending on your ability and how your fitness is feeling that year. And then the A group is usually Cat 3 to Cat 1 racers. And we usually have a healthy mix, and the groups are fairly decent sized every year. I'd say there's usually between 10 to 20 people per group. And the way we set it up so that everyone can have a fun and enjoyable race is the C group will set off from the beginning of the segment on this race to Zion, and then we will wait 4 to 5 minutes, and then the B group will set off after them. And then another 4 to 5 minutes after that, the A group will set off in chase of the 2 groups that went ahead of them. And this makes it pretty interesting for everyone. One, because it's advantageous for you to work with your group for as long as possible, because you're not going to be able to catch up to the B group or the C group if you are working by yourself. And then for those groups that are being chased, it's advantageous for the A group to stick together long enough to catch up to those B groups and C groups. And from the B group, for example, anybody can win. Let me backtrack a little bit. Anybody can win. So if the C group never gets caught, then whoever is the first from the C group will win, getting to the gate entrance at Zion's, which we'll see here down the road. If the B group catches the C group, but the A group does not catch the B group, then whoever from the B group crosses the line first will win the race to Zion. And similarly, if the A group catches both the C and B group, then whoever sprints past the Zion's finish line first will win the race to Zion. And so it makes it a lot of fun. You're trying to work together enough to catch up to the groups ahead of you, but then you're also trying to, play your own race, because you still need to beat the people in your own group, mostly for bragging rights. There's no points on the line. Everyone's just out here having a good time. And today I am riding with the A group. So it is our goal to work together as long as possible, trying to catch both the B group and the C group. The nice thing about this segment is traditionally, not always, it's a little bit of a cross tailwind. So you can form a pretty nice rotating line, which is what we've tried to get going here. Now, to the advantage of the B group, it took us a little while back here in the A group to get into a nice rotating line. We can't blame Kevin this year because he clipped in right away. If you want to know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the race from last year where Kevin took a good solid 3 minutes to clip into his bike, which, you know, as legend has it in our team, all of the A racers have the most difficulty clipping in and out of their bikes for unknown reasons. It's just not a forte of the group. Maybe we should practice that next year at camp. It's just clipping in and clipping out drills. But anyway, the back to my point, the group right now had a little trouble settling into a rhythm, but now that we're in a good rhythm, we're starting to pick up speed and we're able to hold a pretty good pace. So if I look down at the metrics right now that I have along the bottom of the screen, we're averaging probably 25, 26 miles an hour along a fairly flat course. There will be some rollers coming up here in a little bit, and I'll kind of point those out as we get to it. This section, it's a little bit deceiving because the road surface is pretty rough. And so when ordinarily a flat, smooth road wouldn't require so much energy, this road just kind of zaps a lot of that strength from you. And so you have to push a little bit harder than you would think to maintain the speed you want to be going. And also now you can see the road starts to pitch up. So we're going to be going up at about a 2% grade for a little while. And that's going to also start to thin the group out just a little bit. So you can see now we have some of the strong girls mixed in with us too, and they are amazing. They will keep pace with you and drop you on the climb anytime they want to. They're all super strong, and kudos to them for sticking to right with the A group and not the B group this year. And we were certainly grateful to have their help as they kind of rolled through off the front. Let me start to introduce you to a few of the riders here in this A group, and hopefully that'll help out as we get a little bit further into this race, so you know who I'm talking about. So right in front of me, I believe it's Matt Brady. Apologize in advance, guys, if I get any of your names wrong. It's super hard to remember everybody's real name from their Strava name or from their faces from their biking faces. So we have Matt Brady ahead of me, and now just switching over into this other lane, I have Mike Russell. We have two of the girls, Caitlin Howell and I believe it was Liz that was with us as well. On my right side now, you see my buddy CR, who you've seen in a couple of the other videos. And now on the right side is Casey Ross, James Blair, Kevin Fuller. And behind me, we have Tommy Klein and Troy Tompkinson. And forgive me if I've left your name out. I believe we had Greg Nichols with us for a while. He's actually not on our team, but we always leave camp open to anybody who wants to come ride with us. Right here we have Billy Raplier on the left, and also not on our team, former teammate, but he's switched teams recently. But still, we like to have a nice, fun, open environment for everybody, and lots of fun to just come race together. In the white kit, we have Jason Lux just up there in the left, now pulling up onto the front center. And I think that's about everybody now that we'll be working with for the rest of the ride as we get on into our race to Zion. So this long open highway, usually not super eventful. This is where, like I mentioned earlier, you just want to stick together, stick with the group, and roll turns as smoothly as possible. Try to keep those gaps between riders manageable. Unfortunately, there's like this massive rumble strip right down the middle of us, so not as smooth as it could be as you try to switch from the one lane to the other. But it's nice to have any sort of shoulder, and I will say a lot of Utah roads do a good job of keeping some shoulder there for you, so that way you don't have to always ride in the road. It's a little bit tough when you're in a big group like this. Ordinarily, a pace line is probably the safer option, where everybody can always stay off to the side of the road. But when you're racing, the rotating pace line, as much as it hurts, is usually the faster way of riding, and keeps everybody rolling turns evenly, prevents people from getting burned up too early as long as you're smooth. There's plenty of videos on rotating pace lines out there on the internet. I believe NorCal Cycling just did a great one that kind of walks through the benefits and the reasoning behind a rotating pace line. So that's what we've been practicing here, and that's what we like to use on this race designs. If there are heavy crosswinds or a heavy headwind, then you might want to alter your strategy a little bit. But today, like I said, the wind's pretty mild, not a strong wind, tail, cross, head, or otherwise. And so everyone's able to pull through right now. This is definitely a race where you want the slightly deeper wheels. It's funny, we live up in Utah and Salt Lake County, and there are a lot of big climbs. So a lot of guys have slightly shallower rims because when you're climbing all day, it's really nice to have those slightly shallow hoops on your bike. But today you can see a lot of the guys have brought out the deep rims for something that's basically a flat race at full speed. You want any extra aero benefit you can get. Unfortunately, it's also pretty cold today. Well, it started cold, I should say. When we left the parking lot, it was around 40 degrees. Now, as we get closer to Zions, it's almost up to 50 degrees. But unfortunately, we don't stop anywhere to take off gear, so everyone is still wearing their winter gear, or at least their sleeves or their tights. So maybe not as aerodynamic clothing as could be worn, but in my opinion, much better to stay warm than to be freezing cold. In Mike's opinion, who's right ahead of me, he'd rather be freezing cold. He never wears legs, even if it's 30 degrees out on the cyclocross course with snow. He refuses to wear legs, and you know what? We're not going to clothes shame him, but let's just say his clothing choices are questionable. So now, as we get close to this first kind of real hill or test, so I'm going to pull off to the right here and let some other people pass me. Unfortunately, like I said, this is kind of the main hill or the real kicker, and so now I'm kind of in an unfortunate position where I am being slowly ushered to the back of the pace line, which is great ordinarily, but pretty much every year people attack on this climb. And this is where the A group that I'm in right now gets separated. And it's just not a great position for me right now to be in the back. So you can see up front now, people are out of the saddle. They're starting to really put down the watts. And I'm getting worried because if there's too big of a gap, I am not going to be able to bridge back up to 5 or 6 powerful riders. So I'm doing everything I can to try to not only make my way up from the very back of the group, but make my way up to that front group that you can kind of see forming up there so that I don't get dropped or don't get left behind having to do a bunch of work to try to catch up on my own. Fortunately, there's a few other people that were in a similar position as me. So we have Caitlin here and Tommy, both trying to get up to that front group. And by the top of this hill, so again, not a super long climb, but enough where you really have to ramp up the power. But fortunately, we're able to kind of connect up with this front group. So we're not going to be left out behind, but that doesn't mean the rest of the group behind me, with the exception of James, who I think is right on my wheel, they've been dropped now. So this is pretty much the intermediate selection, I'll call it. So out of everyone here, it'll be this group for a little while until we get into more of the rollers within Zions, or at least the lead up to Zions. So it's again, now that we've shed some of the group, it's again advantageous for us to start to work together really well. So what that means is the A group has essentially made its primary selection, and now we're still trying to catch the B group. So if you remember from the beginning of the race when I kind of explained how you have to win the race, it's not only you have to win from your group, but you also have to catch the group in front of you. So now we're working back again together, trying to catch up to the B group. Unfortunately, like the beginning of this race, it takes us a little bit of time to kind of settle back into that rotating pace line. So right here, we're all strung out single file, which is great for me right now. You know, I'm able to get a little bit of a rest from that climb, but it's not great for us as a group trying to win the race. So fortunately, we settle back in now to that rotating pace line now that the road has leveled out and we're no longer on the downhill. The other nice thing about this section is the roads are smooth again. So we have a nicely paved road, no potholes, usually very little debris. There are occasionally cars parked on the side of the road, but you can see way down the road and everybody can move over and adjust accordingly and pretty safely. So the girls that are still with us, for sure Caitlin's still with us, but I cannot recall the name of the other girl with us. Anyway, just two girls left with us right now. Like I told you before, they're super strong. We still have Billy left with us, who was a former teammate, but is now racing for Intermountain. And it's always fun to have him out here because he always pushes us and we always push him back a little bit. And then up ahead of us and the all black is Kevin Fuller. So he is one of the guys that holds the KOM for this segment. And he is also, we give him a hard time for being a triathlete, but he is an amazing triathlete and he competes in the worlds frequently and places very well. So he has a lot of power and this is a great race for him. So he's one to watch here as we get closer to the finish line. The other one to watch, I guess pretty much everyone is one to watch at this point. It's all very strong people, but we also want to watch out for Troy Tompkinson, Casey, and Tommy. Matt as well here with the white helmet on the right. Matt's a super good climber that has a lot of sustained power. Tommy, also a great climber. And Troy's an amazing climber, but he's also got a pretty punchy kind of sprint to him. So on hills like this, right, you can see the A group really lights it up, and we're going to try to keep a fast pace. We're going to try to maybe see if we can get rid of a couple more riders. Ideally, we would have 5 or 6 riders left at this point, but we still have a group of probably 10 to 12. So we want to be able to catch the group in front of us, but we also want to get rid of a few more people as we get closer into the finale here. So I'm going to take this opportunity, just a little bit of confusion there in the line, to jump onto Troy's wheel. So I know from experience, specifically the last year or two, Troy has always made it to the finale, the selection, the race for first from the A group. So I know if I can stay on or near his wheel, then I'll be in a good position. I also know Troy often attacks up a couple of these rollers that are coming up soon, and he's powerful enough that if he gets a gap, he'll be able to hold the gap. And I would really prefer to be able to just stay on his wheel as he's doing those attacks instead of having to try to close the gap, which would require me doing even more power than him. And just not an ideal situation for me. So I'm just going to stay right on his wheel. And right here you can see, just like I was talking about, CR puts in an attack, Troy jumps right on his wheel, and I'm going to stay right on Troy's wheel. So CR made an amazing move right here. He's putting in big power. He's stringing the group out, kind of caught a lot of people by surprise. I'd say the only mistake that CR makes right here is he does a searing attack, but then he stays on the front just a little bit too long. So at this point, there's probably only 5 or 6 of us left in this little group that were able to follow that attack. And if CR had pulled off just a little bit earlier, I think he would have saved his legs just enough to be able to stick with this next attack that's going to go. So now, if this were a race where he's my teammate, ordinarily, that's a perfect move, right? Because he's now strung out the group. He's given me an opportunity to go for the win. But in this scenario where we're just racing together, would have been better for him to pull off just a couple seconds early and let Troy or myself or Tommy or Casey or Kevin essentially share that workload and work together a little bit more. So now we're coming up into the very end of this race, probably less than 1 to 2 minutes left. So I'm now going to make a conscious decision. We're clearly not going to catch the B group. We might pick up a few stragglers here in a minute, but we're not going to catch the B group. So the B group has won the race. Rich Campbell, congratulations to you for winning the race designs this year. He won the sprint out of the B group. So now I'm shifting my focus to just trying to do the best I can out of the A group here. So I'm going to make a conscious decision to try to avoid pulling for as long as possible. And fortunately for me, Tommy has taken the reins here and is happy to keep the pace high. Tommy has a great time trial, so I think he's trying to keep the pace high enough and discourage people from being able to come up and come around him. Unfortunately, we have Troy and Casey behind us, so Troy's going to launch into his sprint. The finish is right up there at that stone ledge, and I'm going to give everything I can. No time and chip, no photo finish. Who knows? Who knows how it went? But it was a pretty dead heat between myself, Troy, and Casey, with Tommy, Kevin, and CR just coming in right behind us. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next year at the Zone 5 Race to Zion.